This is the biggest piece, right? Failing to anchor, not knowing our market value. So we want to know our market value. How do we do this? Hey, step one, do your research. Step two, or 1A, use things like levels.fyi. LinkedIn salaries, kind of dated. I wouldn't necessarily say it's kind of my top choice. There is also Glassdoor, which I don't recommend. I think it's a little dated as well. If you want to take the opportunity to go into the world of blind.com, there is a lot of information on blind, a lot of negative information. So I will preface that if you go in there, be prepared to read things that are going to make you say, why would I ever want to go to this company? Versus there are people that post very specific questions about, hey, I got an offer from XYZ company at this level. This is the breakdown. Is this a good offer? Then you get people chiming in, well, no, I know somebody that works there and their offer was X. So there is some pieces in there, but the reality is these days, people go to Levels. Why? Because Levels uses the most up-to-date information it has based on the fact that the information they are collecting is actual, factual offer letters. It's not something where I can go in there and say, hey, I'm recruiter Randy. I just got this awesome offer from this company and my base is $499,000, right? My bonus is 40% target and I'm getting $100,000 a year in liquid equity, right? They don't do that. You have to formally send in your offer letter to Levels for them to collect the data pieces. That's why the FANG companies, the MANG companies, some of the tier twos, tier threes, there's a lot of information. Some of the smaller companies, startups especially, there's not a lot of information out there. But with startups, there's other things you need to be able to assess there. So, and that's risk tolerance and, runway, what series of funding do they have, and so forth, right? There's a lot of other pieces that come into play there. But if we're talking specifically like tier one, tier two companies, there's a lot of pieces here. So what do we do in this situation, right? We're going to go through it. We're going to identify what the total range is. If there's not 30 data points, right? That's a number that's been used for a couple of years now. I would say, you know what? I don't typically target 30 data points when I'm looking at something. I typically look at more so the last 6 months, right? What do the last 6 months of offers look like? And that's kind of what I use as my points. And then obviously you're going to have things in the bottom 25th percentile. You're going to have things that are so far to the right that, they're just outlandish. They beat other offers by 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, $100,000. We don't want to include that in our numbers, right? But we want to include typically that 50 to 75th percentile. Typically, we really want to look 75th percentile to probably about 95th percentile, because that's where we know some of the ranges stand. And those are things that we want to look at. And we're going to go through all of this. Levels. When you log into levels.fyi, this is typically what you are going to see regardless, right? It's always going to populate with Google, Facebook, and Microsoft, right? If you want to add companies, right, Amazon, Apple, you don't want to consider Facebook at this point, then you get rid of them, right? You can certainly add additional organizations in here, right? There's Databricks. Let's add Databricks in here, whatever the case is, right? This is, Sumit, to your point earlier too, where you said, hey, I know that I'm currently sitting at a role at a FANG company where I'm considered to be, whatever the case might be. Let's just say L6. Well, I know that borders 5 and 6 at Google, 64 to 66 at Microsoft. You can figure out a lot of the leveling pieces here. I think first and foremost, that's one of the biggest things you need to look at. Their titles. I mean, everybody has L this or grade this. Where does it really sit in the grand scheme of things when you compare things? A lot of companies use basically the Google leveling scheme and kind of compare that. So a lot of organizations, especially if there's some heavy influence of former Google folks that are there, whatever, you'll see L3, L4, L5, and so forth down the line, right? Pretty much that's what most of them have, but their titles may be a little bit different. For instance, in my current organization, I had a L8 recently from Amazon interview for an L8 at my organization, and my organization follows the Google kind of method. And he said, well, why am I not distinguished? I'm senior principal at Amazon. Well, that's because right here, you're the same level, right? It's the same level. My organization says we're not going up here. There was not strong enough signal to be here. This is the role we originally interviewed for. That's why, it's the same. It's this title's not senior principal. It's just principal. But for leveling purposes, it's the same role, right? So one of these things we have to look at is understanding where we fit in the grand scheme of it and understand where these titles kind of fit in there. You click on the L5, boom. Here's the average, right? Average is 385 basically. It's $40 off, 385, right? Here's the salary, here's the stock, here's the bonus. This is average, right? We want to go in here and view data points. Okay. The best thing about this, you can go down here, you don't have to add your own salary, right? First thing, what did we talk about earlier? See this 6, this 4, this 3. We don't want those, right? That means this person's been 6 years at the company, 6 years of experience, right? They've just gone back in and updated some of their compensation stuff with levels to let them know where they're currently at. First thing we're going to do, filter new offers. Okay. Why? Because all of these offers are now 0 years at the company. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for brand new offers, right? One of the other things is, let's change it up. Let's go to Seattle. All right. Now we know that what we see here is everything related to Seattle. And if you look down here, you see Seattle, Washington 2/25/2022. So this offer was accepted and submitted in here basically less than a week ago. What I say when people say 30 data points, I typically say, I don't want to do 30 data points. Like, we have 22 rows in here. So, we'll open this thing up to 25 rows. But I typically want to go back 6, maybe 7 months if we don't have a lot of data points, right? Why? If we go back to basically July here, we can see 333, 389, 364, 430 is kind of an outlier, right? 457 is definitely an outlier, but 15 years of experience, 420. We want to kind of create these data points, right? These are the pieces that we kind of want to import to our sheets and say, okay, the low end, the lowest offer I see in here, if I go back, I'll even go back to the beginning of 2021 if we have to. 380, 389, 333. So that's probably my lowest. Yep, that'll be my low end, right? My high end, we know the outlier, one of the outliers here is that 457 number, right? But then we use the rest of those numbers to kind of fill in the data pieces. The other piece, in case you're wondering, is this nice little salary range piece up here. We have some outliers, right? Granted, this doesn't break it down by location, unfortunately, for us, but it gives us some ranges, right? We want to be looking, we know that median is right here in the middle, 75th percentile is here. So if we kind of hover around the 75th percentile, we know that there's some numbers there. Then we know there's 467, 457. There's some numbers here where, hey, we can consider these as some of our pieces as data points and kind of figure out where we want to be with that kind of average of between 70 and 95th percentile. You can do this based on location. You can do it based on anything you want in here as far as years of experience, years at the company, which we got rid of. You can even do it by titles if you wanted to. So if you didn't want to be here and you just wanted to go AI, well, here's every ML AI offer, that's kind of happened. And again, I'm going to go back probably till sometime in 2021. And we see, hey, 425, 488, 389, 381. 298 is the outlier. So we don't want to consider that. But hey, 377 to even 488. 488 is probably pushing us, but maybe 452 is not. That's kind of where we want to build a range. Even with a few data points, we can build a range from this and kind of figure out where we want to be. The other thing we take into account is total years of experience. We know it's all within the same team. Part of the things that come with this are years of experience, interview performance. Those things all come into play too with some of these offers. Negotiation for sure, right? A lot of things come into play here. You can do the same type of research. You just go back and click the levels.fy. It takes you back to the main page. I know specifically this is software engineering. What if it was, what if it's here? What if it's software engineering manager, right? Oh, hey, look, M0, M1, M2. Remember? Candidate 1.267 million, right? M2. View data points. Okay, I can see this. Guess what? We're going to New York. From this data point of 12/21/20 to this one of, well, unfortunately, it wasn't the one of 2/10. Boy, I wish I would have worked with this person. 999. They undersold themselves. Through 11/16 of 2021, we used 1, 2, 3, 4 data points to work our offer to get to 1.267. You see offers starting at 1.068 all the way up to 1.25, right? We even used the ones though that had years at the company, as well as the zero, because we had limited data points, but it kind of gave us, ultimately our goal was to try to get to just over 1 million, right? We had no idea it was going to get to where it was. But we used these data points as kind of leverage to build like, hey, I know M2s in New York are making kind of roughly X. And so when they came up with 880, he gave some data points to the recruiter, and he had an offer from Google, creates leverage. Granted, the Google offer was not stronger than the Meta offer, but he had the Google offer in play. Meta didn't want to lose to Google. So there was a couple iterations of, kind of some email exchanges that went back and forth with some comp pieces and some data pieces. And therefore they were able to kind of come to that. He had no idea the recruiter was going to come back at 1.267, right? I also want to caveat that this was not something that happened in like 2 or 3 days, right? Kind of the back and forth with the recruiter probably took place over the period of 7 to 10 days, right? Wasn't just like 2 to 3, right? We talked through and we thought through how to respond to the recruiter, pieces of information we wanted to give this individual to help go to compensation to say, listen, I don't want to lose this candidate, to Google and so forth. And that's when they came back with this really strong offer. I think off the top of my head, the base salary was like 325. The bonus is a 20% targeted bonus. And then, or 25%, I'm sorry. And then the rest was all equity.
One question, Randy.
Sure.
What about folks who want to change industries? How do you use levels to do that?
Be more specific with me.
So, for example, let's say I'm in management consulting and I want to transition into big tech. How would I do that?
Okay. And from a consulting type role, are you consulting with other companies? Are you going on site? That type of that type of work, and now you want to go be either a manager or an individual contributor somewhere?
Yes. So individual contributor, but in a program management capacity. And right now I'm management consulting with other clients, and do that with a big four firm.
Yep. So what I would do is kind of look at program management. They kind of encompass everything in this technical program manager role. Mm-hmm. You saw when it first popped up. If I back up, we go back to the main page. I just go over here to software engineer, and I kind of click said technical program manager first and foremost. So in case I'm in Texas, so I don't need it to be San Antonio though. Oh, here's a bunch of companies. Here's a bunch of variety of things. Maybe we want to search companies, right? Maybe we want to go to Microsoft, right? Okay, hey, I can see now we want to do Microsoft, and I'm going to filter this to potentially new offers only, right? Aha, here we go. Here's Microsoft, new offers only. Most of them, there's one in Virginia. The rest are mostly obviously Redmond, but you can break it down and kind of get an idea by looking at some of these pieces like this. You don't even have to do Microsoft, right? You could have left it as is and seen a variety of companies in here, right? Salesforce, Apple, Facebook, Rivian, Netflix, and here they are all in this TPM role. So this kind of gives you some ballpark ideas. Now, granted, one of the roles here, or obviously the levels we want to take into account is, this is L5, this is 66, IC5. You can see most of them are on like an L5 level. Obviously, the Apple one's a little bit less because it's an ICT3, which their 4 is typically their senior. So there are ways to kind of work through this and kind of do a little bit of homework and research on it, to be honest. And then obviously, if you want to target a certain company, then, type in the company and see if they have information on it. And you can see 0 to 5 years, 0 to 8. Here's one right here, maybe even, talking about transition. I don't think that's going to be your background because you have years of experience, right? Even as a management consultant. If you have 10 years there, then hey, 0 to 5. Okay, 0 to 10. It's an L5. I did well in the interviews. So the offer comes in right around 248. Granted, this is just some data points to kind of get some understanding. And this is obviously, what they consider to be their TPMs. But it's a starting point to at least get some understanding of knowing where our market sits. Pankaj, I see your hand up.
Yes. I question to the levels. I work in a small startup, and when I apply to tier 2 or tier 3 or tier 1 companies, how should I use the level? Should I look for the same level? Because there is a possibility that they can say that you're coming from a small company and we should have to your lower level.
I'm a small company guy, Prakash. You know what my response is to that?
What?
Yeah, I'm a small company guy. I said I have I have a broader foundation of experience than probably most of your team. Maybe not as much in depth, but you've done more, right? Don't let
Yes.
the fact that you come from a small to mid-sized company intimidate you about potential thing with one of these large Mang type companies, right? Let's be brutally honest.
Okay.
Feel confident in your skill set. I would consider first and foremost, look at your current level. If you are a senior software engineer, I'm just throwing that out there at your company right now, and you want to go from where you're at to Google, absolutely consider L5 roles. But keep in mind, if for some reason you go through the process and they offered you an L4, what do those numbers look like, right? Just to be safe, you can jump in here real quick and you can say, okay, I'm going to go to Google. I really want L5. Okay, I can see the data points, which we kind of went through already. I can kind of see an understanding of what's here. We want to do the new offers only. I can see people have similar years of experience and so forth as myself. But just for my own purposes of understanding what happens if I don't do as well, what does the L4 offer look like? Oh, obviously comps more closer like 279, 278. But I still want to see, hey, new offers. What's kind of going on out there? Oh, there's 0 to 5, 309, 0 to 3, 0 to 2, right? There's another one for 318. So we know there's some space in there. Just kind
Yes.
of have an understanding of what's going on between the level you're considering, which I absolutely think you should consider applying for roles at that level, regardless of where you come from. If you have the years of experience and so forth, apply for them. But just keep in mind that if it's not, what does the next level down, just in case they'd say, nope, not quite qualified for the 5, but maybe a 4. Would you entertain an offer at that level? I'm looking at the numbers. Sure, I'd absolutely entertain it. Because guess what? If it means getting your foot in the door too, the longer plan potentially could be is I would accept 4, come in, work my way up to 5. And then somebody like Randy's going to call me and then try to offer me a job at his company where I may get a bigger raise and maybe even go up a level, whatever the case is. You just become more marketable at that point in time as well.
A quick follow-up question. When you say you present some data to Meta, what kind of data are you referring to? Like a copy screenshot from a level?
Hey, base. It's not even pulling like data from levels and pointing that stuff. At this point, when you're down your final negotiation pieces, you have to be able to present something in order to get something. That's the reality. That's why we want multiple offers. Surprisingly, somebody has not asked yet, what if they ask for my offer letter? Sometimes that's what you see. Google say, send me Facebook's offer or send me Meta's offer. Meta may say, send me your Google offer, right? Get it in writing. They want to see it. It's to your discretion if you want to share that with them. My thoughts, from just my personal / professional opinion is I don't necessarily agree with that tactic because the reality, all they really want to do is just try to beat the offer, right? But if it's going to get you what you potentially think you could deserve, or it's the one piece of information that's necessary to get you to the offer you're looking for, your decision if you want to share it, right? That's reality. When we present data in this case, it was more about, hey, FYI, super excited about the opportunity, based on the research I've done for the market for M2s in New York. Didn't give him where we got the data, just, hey, you know what? We think this offer is a little light compared to some previous offers over the last 6 months. FYI, I've got my Google offer coming into play for an M2, basically one of their senior manager roles as well. Meta's my first choice. What can we do to get this compensate? What can we do to get this offer closer to, and at this point, it was basically, we just said, what can we do to get this offer closer to 1 million year-over-year compensation? That's it. That's all it was.
Nice. Very good summary. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to give a specific number when you're negotiating. You can just say that somewhere near to this.
Yep. And exactly. It could even be, and we're going to talk about this dialogue piece in the second half of this. Sometimes you might have to give a number though, right? You may have to give a number in order to get something you're looking for. And I'll talk a little bit more detail about what I mean by that. But if we're at the end stages, right? We've gone through all the process. We've interviewed. We've got our 3 offers or 4 offers on the table. And our one company, our number one choice is one of those companies, but we want that offer to go up. Are we willing to share some data Are we willing to share like maybe what the offer looks like from one of the competitors to get that number to come up with? And we'll talk through what that dialogue looks like. So not necessarily do you have to give them specific numbers, but you definitely have to be willing to share a little bit when you get to the end results, right? In the very beginning of this, we were maintaining all these open timelines. We're keeping things very ambiguous. When we get to the end where we're kind of getting ready to point to say, yes, I'm ready to make a decision, I'm ready to sign on the dotted line, that's when we have to start kind of giving some data pieces, which we're going to talk about after this.
Makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Want to become a software engineer at Google? You can, like thousands of our students. You just need to learn from those who've already cleared FANG interviews. At Interview Kickstart, our interview prep courses are developed and taught live by 150 plus instructors from Tier 1 companies like Google and Facebook. Our courses are tailored to help you crack software engineering domain interviews, including back-end, full stack, machine learning, embedded systems, data science, and more. To learn more, book your free webinar slot today